This story was written by user DarkHero. Title name: Our First Night Together. My name is Alex, and I've been dating a girl named Susan for a few months now. Believe it or not, we actually met on Reddit, and it's been nothing but a dream ever since. We just clicked. We had the same interest in horror, food, shows, books, everything. We took our time and got to know each other for a couple of weeks. We talked every single day. My heart would skip a beat every time I saw a notification pop up on my Reddit messages. Susan had taken up all of my attention, and she made me feel so happy. She sent me a picture of herself, and I was completely awestruck with her beauty. Susan is 5'3", red curly hair, pearlescent skin, so confident, just absolutely stunning. Me, on the other hand, lanky, sickly pale, unkempt brown hair, and extremely awkward. When I sent her a really, really bad selfie, she told me that I was attractive. I really hoped I wasn't getting catfished. Then, out of the blue, she asked for my number. My heart absolutely sank. I was so damn nervous that I just didn't know how to respond. She kept pestering me for a while until I caved in and finally texted her. Then the text turned to calls. We started calling each other during her lunch. We never ran out of stuff to talk about. Things were going so great for me. I truly felt like I met the one for me. One day, she brought up how her roommate was moving out. Susan had a decent job working at a pharmacy, but the thought of spending all that money was stressing her out. So while we were on the phone, I suggested moving in with her. I work at home as a programmer, so as long as I had my laptop, I was good to go. There was a long pause. Those couple of minutes, I thought that my heart was going to explode in my chest, until I heard little sobs coming from the other line.
Yes, I'd really love that,
she shouted. The rest was history. I packed up my stuff and made my way to her. This would be our first time meeting face to face. I didn't feel nervous at all. Quite the opposite. I was so excited. During the drive, all I could think about was how perfect life would be with her. An hour later, and I was pulling up to her apartment. Susan was staying outside, and when she saw me, her face just lit up. I was barely getting out of the car when she just ran up and gave me a hug and kiss. Things just felt right. Thankfully, I didn't have much, just a few boxes that I was able to stuff in my car. I sold and gave away the bigger stuff to make things easier. When she showed me her place, it was exactly how I imagined. Everything was immaculately clean and organized, and she had these lavender candles lit. The apartment was a 2-bed and 2-bath. It was quite spacious. I didn't get a chance to unpack. We spent some time together, and when the evening came, she ordered some pizza for dinner.
I swear, this is the best pizza you'll ever have,
she exclaimed. Oh no, I'll be the judge of that. I've had some pretty good frozen pizzas, I joked. She rolled her eyes and playfully punched my arm. Then we sat for a moment and stared at each other.
Are you nervous about this?
She suddenly asked. I answered quickly and without a thought. No, not at all. You're stuck with me. She smiled and gave me a kiss on the cheek.
You're going to be sick of me one day.
I laughed at her and reassured her that I had no intention of going anywhere. Soon after the pizza came, and yeah, it was phenomenal. I went off to use the restroom. We spent most of the time in our living room, so I might as well get used to where everything was. The hallway was long and dark, with a door at the very end and 2 doors parallel from each other. All the doors were closed, so I made my way down and reached for the door to the right. I could hear something behind the door. A light shuffling of movement. No, Susan's voice suddenly came from beside me. It made me jump. I looked at her just for a moment. It triggered the light, but it looked as if her face morphed. Hey, just looking for the bathroom. I don't know why the words came out so awkwardly. She reached her hand towards the door to the left and opened the door to a clean bathroom. She flashed a smile.
Here we are. And don't forget about the master bathroom in our bedroom.
Susan let out a cute giggle. That washed away all my sudden nervousness. So, what's in here? Your murder room? I said with a laugh. She dropped her head down. Her hair hung down, and she looked like a redhead version of the girl from The Grudge. Slowly, a maniacal laugh erupted from her that caused me to jolt back.
You found out my horrible secret,
she said with a forced, deep voice. We stood there for a moment in an awkward silence, my body rigid in fear, until she bursted in real laughter.
Relax, babe. It's a joke.
My shoulders loosened, and I let out a long sigh. I patted my chest to calm my heart that wanted to burst out. Her laughter slowly subsided as she gave me a hug.
Easy. Sorry if I freaked you out. It's just my old roommate's room. See?
She opened the door to reveal a room with a bed and a few boxes filled with clothes and knickknacks.
She hasn't gotten all of her stuff yet, so it's a little messy.
My face flushed red. I don't know why I reacted like that. I was cursing myself in my mind for the next hour or so. Susan cuddled up to me on the couch and kept apologizing for freaking me out. I forgave her and apologized for being a baby. She shared a laugh, and the rest of the evening, we just talked about nothing. Before we knew it, midnight came, and we were both exhausted. She grabbed my hand and led me to our bedroom. Not very much to see. It was like the other bedroom, just a little bit bigger, with a walk-in closet and a door leading to the master bedroom. Her bed was big and neatly covered with a bunch of pillows. We prepared for bed and lay down. The bedding was so soft. Susan snuggled close to me and let out a sigh.
So, I have something to tell you.
The way she said it made it so ominous. That damn nervous feeling started to bubble inside my chest. She put her arms around me and squeezed tightly.
Don't freak out, but I talk in my sleep.
I looked at her. I could barely make her outline within the darkness. I ruffled her hair and let out another sigh. My nerves are getting to me. I was moving in with my dream girl, and this is my first night with my girlfriend. So, of course, I'm nervous. If that's the worst thing you have to offer, then I'm sure I'll be okay. I reassured her. She gave me a tight squeeze, and we said goodnight. Susan fell asleep quickly, but I had a little bit of trouble. Her body was pressed against my side as I looked up towards the ceiling. She was actually right here next to me, and I actually moved in with her. Everything started to hit me at once. I felt myself, my consciousness, slowly but surely fade asleep.
Alex,
Susan whispered. For a second, I laughed to myself. She really did talk in her sleep. She must have been nervous as I am to be calling my name out in her sleep. I turned over to look at her. Susan's back was towards me. and I gazed at her silhouette. Her shoulders were rising and falling with every breath.
Alex?
Her voice whispered again. That's when I noticed that whisper, her whisper, didn't come from her direction. I slowly got up to not disturb her and looked around. It was too dark to see anything. I looked back over to her, and sure enough, she was still. The sounds of her breath filled the darkness. I was sure that she was just joking with me again, so I sat there for a moment and watched her. I held my breath, trying to concentrate to hear that whisper again. A few seconds passed. Those small increments of time felt so long. My chest tightened with the lack of air, and I didn't want to breathe. I didn't want to miss any sound. I heard a car drive by on the road. A loud clicking from the AC unit and the rolling of the air through the vents. Light thuds. The sounds of footsteps? This is an apartment, so sounds like that are common. My heartbeat is gaining speed.
Alex?
The voice, it was coming from the hallway. I looked over back to Susan. I placed my hand on her shoulder and rolled her back towards me. She jolted awake.
What the fuck?
She grumbled. She reached over to her nightstand with a small lamp on top of it and clicked it on. She faced towards me. Her eyes were barely open as she mumbled.
What's wrong?
I heard you calling my name. I told her everything. Everything seemed normal. Then it happened again. Her face shifted. Within the dimly lit room, the skin on her face seemed to roll and snap back to her cheek. She lifted her hand and slightly rubbed her eyes. The freckles on her arms began to crawl around her slightly, centimeter by centimeter. Susan yawned and placed her hand on my cheek. I looked into her eyes. Her beautiful green eyes were now yellow. I jolted back from her touch. Her hands were freezing cold. She looked up at me with a hurt look on her face. Her beautiful face looked disoriented, twisted.
Do you need some space?
She asked. When she opened her mouth to speak, her teeth were rows upon rows of small, jagged fangs. Her tongue twisted and black. I'm just tired. I'm just tired, I said. I looked away. I couldn't look at her. The more I stare at her, the more change her face becomes. She grabbed my face. Her fingers were long, and they wrapped around the back of my head.
Are you sure everything is okay?
Her voice wasn't a sweet, honeyed voice as before. The words crept from her throat, but sounds like a dozen voices, all whispering in unison. She tilted her head, and I could hear the bones in her neck crack. I'm fine. I'm fine, I said, trying not to show my anxiety. I could feel beads of sweat running down my face. Her long fingers tightened on my head as I croaked out these words.
That's okay, babe.
Her voice, those voices, became low and disoriented, like a recording messing up.
I'll take care of you.
The words sounded so forced. I felt my body sink into the bed. She released my head and began to shuffle towards me. I looked up to the ceiling and saw her crawling on me. The shorts and the oversized t-shirt that she wore to the bed was now torn as she was over me. I could keep making more and more details. The once 5'3" woman was now a towering amalgamation of disoriented flesh with her limbs stretching like a spider above me. Her face was so twisted and disfigured into a mess of skin, like piles and piles of rotten meat balled into one another. Her hair hung down and touched my cheeks. It was now jet black. I felt each strand of hair wiggling around my head. I tried to let out a scream, but as soon as I opened my mouth, I choked. From her razor-toothed mouth poured a viscous glob of saliva. It ran down like oil down my throat, and I wanted to vomit. I coughed and spit. Tears squeezed out from my eyes. I thought I was going to drown. I tried to get up, to run away, but I looked down to see her hair wrapped around my entire body. Her face inched closer and closer to mine. Her eyes glowed yellow towards me. Her face twisting more and more, and her teeth gleamed with saliva. The mouth was now inches away from mine, and the words came from her mouth, and the air smelling like sulfur hit in my nose.
I love you.
I couldn't escape. I could feel its tongue brushing on me. My skin crawled, and a wave of electricity ran down my spine. I couldn't take any more, and I'm not afraid to admit that I passed out. I resigned to myself, to my doomed fate. I wish I could say that I just fell asleep, but I was plagued with nightmares of Susan, of that thing toying with me. I woke up to the sound of light knocking on the wood. I got up to find myself in Susan's bed, but alone. My head ached as the knocking continued. Each knock banging in my ears. I got up to open the front door. A tall woman with short black hair, dressed like a typical goth girl. She looked at me, up and down, and smiled.
You good?
She asked. Despite her look, she had such a dulcet voice. Before I can ask who she was, she quickly responded.
Oh, duh. I'm Maple. Or was, Susan's roommate. She told me all about you.
She said with a smile. Oh, right. Hey, I was able to let out. My throat ached.
You are just as cute as she said.
She said with a wink. I was taken aback at that. I asked her where Susan was, and she pointed towards the couch. Was last night just a dream? I walk into the living room to find Susan. Beautiful as always. Susan sleeping soundly on the couch. Maple stepped in with the box, tiptoeing quickly and quietly, and she whispered,
Just grabbing the rest of my shit. Later.
She was out the door. A few minutes later, Susan awoke and looked at me with an embarrassed look on her face. I asked her what's wrong, and she admitted that she was just nervous sleeping with me and snuck off into the couch while I was asleep. Suddenly, the memories of that night flashed in my mind, and I felt my heart sink into my gut.
Yeah, I talk a lot in my sleep. I was afraid I'll freak you out if you heard me calling your name or something.
Maybe it was all a dream. A dream. More like a nightmare. We continued the rest of the morning, just lying on the couch. And then I told her that her roommate came by early this morning to grab the rest of her things. She looked relieved when I told her that. She always said that her roommate was a bit odd. Yeah, she seemed nice. She said that she'll catch us later. I said.
I doubt it.
She answered.
She's moving across to the other side of the country to pursue her modeling career.
That threw me off a bit. She didn't seem like the model type.
Isn't she gorgeous, though?
She clicked on her phone to show me a picture of her hugging and smiling with a young, blonde woman. I told her that this wasn't the person that was there this morning. Not at all. She didn't think any of it. Told me that she must have dyed her hair or something, but I'm sure that was not the woman that I saw. Please tell me what you think. I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. Thank you for watching and listening. If you really enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. And I want to give a huge shout out to Glenda Villamar and ThePanicWithin. You guys did fantastic. Thank you so much. I want to finally add that if you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link in the descriptions below, as it does help me and the channel out. I thank you in advance. And that's the end of the video. Thank you.
Good night, farewell, and remember, don't get lost in the dark.